Thank you so much for joining us, Prashant. Very happy to finally have you on Brand Equity. You're an elusive man.
Oh, uh, it's actually excellent to be here. Um, Last few months have been quite busy for both of us.
Sure.
Right. And it's great to be here and talk to you, Sonali.
Anyway, my first real conversation with you as CEO of GroupM, so belated congratulations. Also, the fact that you are my first conversation with you with the whole this year, next year GroupM predictions, and your report is out, and the findings are interesting and remarkable, I would say. You have estimated the growth of the Adex for the calendar year 2020 at 10.7%.
That's right.
For India. And we ended last year at about 9%.
That's right.
Right? So, given the current sentiment, mood, state of economy, which the less said is better at the moment, one would like to say that your estimation of 10.7% is a bit rosy and optimistic. Would you say that you looked into all factors, economic conditions, as well as the fact that we have never seen consumption at such a low, and the fear sentiment amongst the general population of India, which is also seeming to have hit a new low, unemployment levels as never seen before. Given such a scenario, would you say that maybe the forecast should have been done with a much more skeptic view?
We have actually looked at all of them.
Okay.
And some more, essentially because there's a lot of responsibility as a leader and working with multiple categories, and as a huge responsibility interacting with multiple partners in the ecosystem. And therefore, our assessments, and these are not findings, these are again estimations,
Sure.
as you've said.
Sure.
A thorough analysis has been done, and this is something which I've been doing for years in that context. Some of the factors which I would like to say here is, it's some of the factors that went into looking at how this growth is. One of the factors that for the last 4 years, I mean, if you just put the context, if you look at the Adex growth of this country, it's been about 12%, right? So it's actually about 12.2% in the last 4 years. So from that context, 2019 and 2020 is probably slightly challenging from that context. In that context, if we look at it, one of the aspects that has also been noticed and observed is that India has finished as the 9th largest global ad market in 2019, and we're estimating to be the 8th largest in 2020. Now, coming to the question on what are some of the factors which is really looked at, we have looked at some of the government initiatives which have come into the entire, the rural areas, which is the the PM Kisan initiatives, and some of the initiatives, if you look at it, MG and Rega initiatives, some of the initiatives, when you look at it, they might take about a couple of quarters to actually set into reality in terms of actually propelling consumption. We have looked at from the aspect of the first half and the second half. We said that we're probably going to have a moderate growth in the first half and probably and have more robust growth in relation in the second half. And some of the reasons that went on to looking at that is essentially looking at what happened in 2019, what has been the base effect of that, what are some of the festive seasons and the number of days that played on to it. We also see the holidays aspect playing into the consumption. We know how, we looked at some of the studies where holidays actually play into that. We all know of it, how it actually has potential to increase the consumption. So many of these factors, from media properties to initiatives from a government, from initiatives that is applying, even from an unemployment aspect, as you mentioned, the estimates have shown that how the rate of unemployment could go down to as low as from 8.5 to 6.1.
I would be very surprised if that happens.
Correct. Very true, but these are again, indicators.
Yeah, sure.
And these needs to be looked at from the context of how it is played on different categories. We have also looked at from the categories lens. And, we all know that the top 4 categories are FMCG, auto, e-commerce, and the mobile handsets, right? And many of the aspects that is happening in these 4 categories, how does it imply back into a potential growth, has been also been applied into. If you look at auto category, there is a scenario where BS4 inventory needs to be go off and BS6 inventory needs to come in. That's an opportunity. It requires pushing into the market, right? There are new brands which have come into the country. There is PSA Motors which has come into the country. There is MG which has come into the country. We have multiple launches that is happening. If you look at Kia Motors to multiple other brands, all of this requires a lot more, And we also looked at even last year. We all know that auto was in tremendous challenges.
Yes.
But we have seen in multiple months how they have probably looked at advertising, and because they need to be, talking to the consumer. So when you have much more reasons to look at it, that will actually play in. Look at from e-com perspective, very similar aspects on how e-com it is important to continue to talk to the consumers. Same is the case with the largest categories, FMCG, right? We also looked at from the subcategories on how some of these aspects will play onto it. We also looked at from large to medium to smaller categories, how it is played onto that. We also need to look at from a media perspective, right? Now let's look at what is 10.7, right? 10.7, I mean, we're estimating TV to grow at about 7.4%, right? TV has been growing at double digits, right, from that context, right? But yeah, some of these aspects will play on to it. In digital, we're estimating to be 30% in the media mix.
From 25.
From 27.
From 27.
Right? It's a 3 percentage points up. But it's again from a growth of 27%, which you're going to see in the coming year, 27.5, if I'm not mistaken. But the point is, how is that play coming on? So there is a play of, from a digital perspective, there is also a play of organized versus the entire SME sector, right? I mean, there is a large play the SME sector is playing in terms of the pace of growth, right? Okay. Organized also is pumping into the pace of growth, but maybe slightly one notch lesser.
Sure.
But that collectively gives that growth from that context. And if you look at some of the other traditional media, they're again sub 7% from that. Mathematically, if we work on, I mean, this is the number which you will get.
Sure.
And to me, frankly, it may look, a double digit may look very optimistic, as how you want to call it. But to me, it is not optimistic, because we are a market which grew at 12%. We have seen years where we have seen at 13, 14%. The good news is we are still one of the largest growing market globally, right? And these are again abundant opportunities. I'm sure this will get shaped up in different forms. Yeah.
Right, Prashant, I'm happy that you are, having an optimistic outlook. Having said that, the current market conditions and even global commentary coming from the IMF has declared India to be a burden on the global economy, given our slowing rate. So the fact that we are in the midst of somewhat of a crisis is true. Having said that, I think all of us will be very happy if we can actually achieve this 10.7%, because 2019 has been pretty terrible for most of the industry. I just want you to, as the leader and an industry veteran, look back at 2019, at the year gone by, and if you could just throw up the key differences in terms of 2019 being an aberration year where things were not cheery and it was a little bit of gloom and doom, and highlight why those things happened. And if you can juxtapose that with 2020 and given your newfound optimism, tell me what is the big significant change you see in terms of consumer spending, in terms of client sentiment, because we also saw clients, tighten their purses and actually ziplock it and not willing to spend money. So are you seeing that change in client sentiment? Is that palpable for you being in this business? And hence, are you seeing a big drastic movement from 2019 to 2020?
It is true that there is uncertainty. It is true that there is a mix of sentiments that is on, right? Now, there are economical sentiments, there are environmental sentiments, and some of these apply to the growth of industry. And we should be aware of that, how each of it plays into consumer life, and therefore how it plays into different categories, right? If you look at 2019, we had a great first half in 2019.
Sure.
And the same breath, if we ask everyone, they will all agree to that, right? I think what happened in the second half is in the context of some of the slowdown which picked up, which also came in few categories, as we have seen in similar form. But if we look at FMCG from that context,
Yes.
FMCG has not been declining, it's been growing, even if you look at it from the last year perspective, overall in an annual form. But there were challenges. If you look at e-com, it has not been declining from that context. It's been growing. Whether you look at it from an audience perspective or ad spends in e-com as well, right? Digital has also shown a growth. Now, all of this has been the sentiments as well as the implication of that which has been going on. Yes, second half normally slightly bigger than the first half, and that probably was the reason why we also revised our estimates to bring it to 9%. But when we look at 2020, that is why we are saying, if you look at the base effect also, and some of the aspects that is going to play out during the year, we see that the second half will be more robust than the first half from that context, because some of the initiatives will take time.
Sure.
Right? The aspects on 2020, and I'm again stating that the reflection of this number has to be also looked at from each media how is it played, right? 10.7 is a collective media Adex number, and how it implies into digital, how it implies into TV, how it implies into different other traditional media like print, etc. needs to be looked at, right? I think there is a new there are changes, uncertainties from an NTO perspective. There are there are also opportunities from the context of regional language channels which are happening, right? The strength of those channels, implication of that, and therefore potential growth from that context. There are more local brands which are looking at the medium, a mix of clients, and not only from large clients. You look at some of the, medium clients, the growth is substantially, much more better. If you look at some of the new tech clients which are there, which are coming to that, there are again new entrants which have actually brought in. I don't know whether if you notice some of the large properties, it's not anymore probably the conventional brands, but it's again some of the new tech brands which are coming to, sponsoring them. So these are again how the mix is changing.
Okay.
Right? So we should not be looking at conventional way of how we look at things.
Okay.
We should look at how this is implied into the changes and inferences in the platform, as well as how it is implied into new brands coming in from some of the semi-segments, and therefore opportunities for some categories like auto on how the entire place changing from BS4 to BS6, and therefore opportunities. And that's how we come out with this, right? It's again estimated to be a good second half versus a first half, and we will see how this actually shapes up. And I'm sure this is also an opportunity for the rest of the entire the supply ecosystem to look at how we can make a better and more progressive growth.
When I look at what you have released in terms of the Adex across platforms, if I look at TV, it's moving from 35,000 odd to about 38,000 prediction for 2020. So I would say marginal
7.5.
Yeah, marginal spike. Okay, radio is pretty much flat.
Yes.
Print also pretty much flat. Same with outdoor and cinema. Internet, of course, moving from 22,000 to about
6,000 crores increment.
Yeah, to about 28,000.
Yeah.
So there is a significant spike.
Yeah. So the whole point is you have to play into that, right? I mean, many of the media which are seeing is that there's a growth that is significant on digital growth, and also becoming the number 2 medium in 2019 and growing. Is essentially making the mathematics to come to 10.7, right? Whereas other media is almost remaining flat or a marginal growth.
Exactly. So out of this 10.7, you're saying the big contributor here is actually digital.
That is why 65% of the incremental Adex is going on to digital, and about 35% is going to the other rest of the media.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair point. So if you can break down for me, out of that 65%, how much would be the monopoly of, let's say, Facebook, Google, Amazon and the likes of that, the ones that contribute the lion's share?
Yeah.
How much of that would be, can I say safely 80 to 90% would be that kind of?
So there used to be a time when it was almost 80-90%.
Okay.
But it's not 80-90% now.
Oh, it's come down, you're saying?
Yeah, but it's again substantial.
Yeah, sure.
Right? If you look at last 2 or last 3 from that context, it may be closer to 65 to 70%, for instance. But it's interesting to notice that how other platforms are catching up. Look at some of the IPL properties on Hotstar, and Woot, and Sony Live, and Z5, These are again platforms which have come onto that, and brands are getting into that because the content is also actually pulling them for many more views to come into that, and many more consumers being in that platform. So that is really.
So you're saying OTT now? I mean,
OTT is expanding.
The AVOD, which is the advertiser-supported model, is slowly gaining traction.
It is gaining traction.
It is gaining traction.
Yeah.
Okay, but it will still contribute a small percent.
So if you look, it is not yet
significant.
So you're right. I mean, there is a significance still on this top 2, top 3 place. But there's also birth of the e-com inventory platform which has come in. So that may be about closer to 5-6% of that.
Okay.
But there's OTT which is expanding, right? Which is so these are again the ecosystem is expanding within, right? And then there is a fragmentation of opportunities for clients as well as the demand from the supply ecosystem which is happening. So it will actually dilute from that context. But what is interesting to note is that the products and some of the AdTech and MarTech solutions which are coming across is also the trigger in which how each of them plays into how this entire pie will look like, right? So that's essentially important. In all of this, let me also state that it's not just these platforms, right? It is also many of the publisher-led platforms from either from a TV perspective or from a print perspective, which is also significantly bringing a relevance to that. Now it's important to notice how each of that content can play a larger role and continue to be relevant, right? With some innovative ways. So that is important.
Sure.
Right? While there is a subject of native, how that applies into which audience and which category and what is the role? Is it more on the engagement factor, and therefore how do you apply on to that? And these are again conversations which will actually come on, and that can seriously imply and reflect on to how it is shaped up. Yeah.
You also talked about one of the key reasons in terms of the growth contributors is the shift to vernacular. My question, as in more vernacular programming,
regional, one of the trends.
My question more to do, and also given the NTO play, would you say what is the fate of the English genre? We have seen it fast decline thanks to the emergence of OTT. We've seen the NTO order also impacting the genre. What is the future of this genre?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. I think as you rightly mentioned that most of this consumption of this, the language specifically is moving on to the OTT and digital consumption, which is true. And what it really means is compelling content, significantly game-changing content. From a medium perspective, it is about TV to digital. I mean, we're not talking about, my understanding of the question is from TV, from an English perspective, right?
Yes, it's TV.
Because there is English entertainment happening across, right?
Yeah.
So, if we need more and more people on from a TV perspective, I think we need to have more compelling content. We need to have game-changing content that will actually apply into that. I think we know that there is a significant, acceptance to the language. That is not an issue, right?
Sure.
But what is really playing is the opportunity on regional content, where people are able to see much more probably exciting content, and the availability of supply of that content is increased, right? There are innovative content coming on. If you look at it from a digital perspective, also from a vernacular thing, there are innovative content coming on. From a TV perspective, also there is innovative content coming on. Multiple channels, multiple time bands, and how different properties are playing. So that is actually expanding, and we are a country where there are multi-languages, right? And that's an opportunity. So there will be a kind of dynamism played onto that. But if we want more and more people, or we want to sustain the English content, then we need a similar content play, a similar innovative aspect to keep the audience with us.
The other thing is that with the second phase of NTO coming, what kind of and the kind of commentary that is currently coming from the industry, which is not very happy with the different parameters that have been set. How are you expecting the 2.0 to pan out, and what will be the major repercussions this industry will see? We've already faced one with the introduction, but what happens with this?
Yeah, so it will play on in multiple forms, right? One is that the entire business of broadcasting will have its own impact, right? I mean, because there is a distribution revenue, there's an advertising revenue playing on. How that will change because of the new NTO, we still don't know what is it exactly. It's still been discussed and there's no clear.
True.
I mean, when is it going to happen, etc. We're still waiting for it,
Yeah.
right? But when it happens, there are possibilities. Now, it can play on scenario A, scenario B, scenario C for multiple of these pillars of possible. So, how it play on the distribution when NTO first phase happened, I think it was progressive for distribution from that context, from an overall distribution angle.
Yeah.
But whether it did scale up, may not be, but to a certain extent, right? It also played into the composition of how broadcasting versus pay versus FTA, right, which actually played. So we had some new players entering into the entire ecosystem and changing the ranks of the overall, viewership aspect.
Sure.
That also made a change, right? So this in a new NTO form, well, it can impact. It can also impact of probably some of the large networks relooking at the strategy on how they want to play on pay and FTA, for instance, right? That's again scenario A, scenario B from that context. Measurement, yes, there will be a few aspects which we'll have to keep our eyes on. Yes, I mean it's a no-brainer, right? I mean when there is a change in the ground, there will be some implication of the measurement, so that will actually take some time. Now, these are all aspects which may come on to it. I think we are getting used to this, right? So the uncertainty. Okay. So we should not be panicking that, oh my God, again it will change, etc. All the stuff, right? We are a market where we also had dark, seasons, right? And we've looked at how that has been passed by. But yeah, it will be exciting.
Would you say that the pricing growth across different platforms have met expectations or not? That's a good question. Of whom?
Yeah.
Of publishers, broadcasters?
This conversation is a great conversation to have because, it has to be a win-win, right? There has to be a value for the brand. The entire reason why advertising is still growing is because brands continuously feel that advertising has a role in the business growth. And the reason why the industry is growing from a supply ecosystem is they feel that we can provide those solutions. Clear.
Got it.
Now, we've got to really work with these two in an intelligent form to see how progress can be measured, right? These are years where single media houses have become multiple media houses.
Right.
Look at the assets they had and how they have leveraged those assets, right, and made it into multiple medium, multiple solutions. That's again being intelligent and how it can be played on to. Any kind of leverage of assets is a great attraction for brands to look at, right, and how it is getting played on to that. So faster, innovative aspects from different media houses helps the media house to progress from that context, right? So yeah, that's what I would say.
Fair enough. Well, 10.7%, that's what you're leaving us with for, the growth for this year. Hopefully, we will exceed it.
Sonali, do you want more than 10.7? Do you think it
Yes, it will impact your life, my life, all our lives. So yes, I'm definitely, yeah. I mean, I might ask you questions with skepticism because it does seem a bit optimistic. But if it breaches the 10.7 mark, I will be more than happy.
I think a lot of it is sitting with us.
Yeah.
A lot of responsibility sitting with us on how we can find some intelligent solutions to look at.
Sure. But on that note, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sonali.
We will meet in 6 months to review this number. If it stands...
Well, we review this every 3 months.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But we can meet in every 6 months also.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Prashant.
Yeah.
Lovely having you.
Thanks, Sonali.